You know that feeling, right? Heart pounding, staring at the clock, trying to submit an assignment at 11:58 p.m. Well, now imagine doing that, but you're in a completely different time zone. Your kids are finally asleep, and your Wi-Fi is, let's be honest, terrible. That's the reality for so many students, and it's exactly why this idea of online flexibility can be so, well, misleading. Today, we're going to go way beyond flexibility and talk about what really matters: equity. And boom, this quote right here just nails it. We have to get one thing straight from the jump. Flexibility and equity are not the same thing, not even close. Just because a student can log in at 2 a.m. doesn't mean they have an equal shot at success. True equity is so much more than that. It's really about designing a learning experience that genuinely works for everyone, no matter what life is throwing at them. Okay, so what are we even talking about here? What does equity actually look like in an online class? Well, it's not about being reactive, waiting for that panicked email from a student saying their internet went down. No, it's about being proactive. It's about asking ourselves from the very beginning, hey, what if a student's only device is their phone? Or what if they work the night shift? It's about anticipating these very real challenges and building the solutions right into the course itself. That way, every single student gets a fair shot right from day one. Which, of course, leads us to the big question, right? How in the world do we spot these hidden barriers? I mean, how do we address the challenges that students might be too embarrassed or too busy or just too plain overwhelmed to ever bring up? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into. So we've identified 4 of the most common and often invisible barriers to online learning. And we're going to start with the one that's staring us in the face every single second of the day: time. All right, first up, the time clock. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking asynchronous learning is this magical space where time doesn't matter and work just happens. But for our students, that clock is always ticking. And if we don't think about different time zones and work schedules, we're basically setting some students up to fail before they even start. And this slide, it just perfectly captures that disconnect. An instructor casually writes, "Submit by tonight." Seems simple, right? But for a student who's halfway across the world, or a parent whose only quiet time is after 10 p.m., or a shift worker whose tonight ends at sunrise, that one little phrase becomes a major source of stress and confusion. So, what's the fix? Honestly, it's pretty simple. Just be super explicit. First, pick one time zone for all your deadlines, say 11:59 p.m. Eastern, and put it everywhere. On the syllabus, in the announcements, everywhere. Second, for things like discussions, give a generous 24 to 48-hour window so people can actually engage thoughtfully. Third, just get rid of vague phrases like tonight or end of day. And finally, try to vary when you post announcements. That way you're not always catering to the early birds. And here's the bottom line. If a student has to pull out a calculator or a world's clock just to figure out when something is due, your course is already asking for extra mental work that has nothing to do with learning. Let's just make it easy for them to focus on what actually matters. Okay, let's talk about barrier number 2. We've all been there, right? The Wi-Fi just dies right before a huge deadline. Or maybe you're trying to watch a lecture on your phone while juggling, a million other things. That's not a rare exception. For many students, that's just Tuesday. And that's why we have to talk about the digital divide. Just look at this comparison. On the left, you've got the dream setup that we as instructors often imagine our students have: super fast Wi-Fi, a new laptop, a nice quiet space to work. But the reality for so many students is what you see on the right: a shaky internet connection the whole family is using, a smartphone as their main computer, and a learning environment that's anything but quiet. Equity means we have to design for the reality on the right, not just the fantasy on the left. So how do we actually bridge that gap? Here are a few practical ways. First, for every video you post, make sure there are low bandwidth options, like a transcript or the slide deck itself. That way, a bad connection doesn't block learning. Second, break up long lectures into smaller downloadable video files. And this one is huge. Design assignments that don't just work on a phone, but are actually easy to do on one. It's all about giving students options and control. This is about way more than just tech. It's about building a course that's resilient. And this quote just reframes the whole problem, doesn't it? If a student can't learn because their Wi-Fi dropped, the problem isn't their internet connection. The problem is our course design. When we design for the student with the weakest Wi-Fi, we end up making the course better and more accessible for literally everyone. All right, on to barrier number 3. And this one might surprise you a little bit. It's time to completely rethink what flexibility even means. For way too long, we've treated it like it means a total lack of structure. But the truth is, real, meaningful flexibility actually needs a solid, thoughtful structure to work. Chaos is not equity. And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On the left, you have that vague offer. Just let me know if you need help. That sounds nice, but it puts all the pressure on the student to come forward and ask for an exception, which we know many students are hesitant to do. But look at the right, a clear, universal policy, like everyone gets one automatic 48-hour extension. That empowers everybody equally, no questions asked. One approach creates anxiety, the other creates real agency. So, how do you do it? How do you build a course that's both structured and flexible? It's actually easier than it sounds. You could try something like grace tokens, basically digital passes that students can spend for an extension. It's a great way to teach them to manage their resources. Or you could just build in a 24-hour grace period for every assignment. The key is also consistency. Keep a predictable rhythm. Maybe assignments are always due on Sundays and new material always drops on Mondays. And finally, explain why you have these policies. It's all about empowering students, not just controlling them. So let's be super clear on this. Structure isn't the enemy of equity, it's the foundation of it. When we build a thoughtful, predictable structure, we create a learning environment that can actually bend to fit the messy, unpredictable, real lives of our students. Okay, let's tackle our fourth and final barrier. Have you ever stared at a blank screen, just totally lost, trying to figure out what an instructor really wants for an assignment? We've all been there. That's what we're calling the guessing game. And it's a game that not all students are equally prepared to win. This gets at something academics call the hidden curriculum. Think of it as all the unwritten rules of college that some students just seem to know, like how to write a formal paper or what critical analysis even means. A transparent design, on the other hand, makes all those secret rules visible to everyone. It levels the playing field. It takes the insider knowledge of a few and makes it common knowledge for all. So the solution here is pretty obvious. Clarity. Just be crystal clear. First, state your expectations, and then repeat them everywhere, in the syllabus, on the assignment page, in your weekly announcements. Second, show, don't just tell. Provide examples of what an A paper looks like. Third, be honest about the time commitment. Tell them, hey, this reading should take you about 90 minutes. And finally, use the same language over and over again. It's all about removing the guesswork from learning. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? When students have to guess what good looks like, then getting a good grade becomes a guessing game. And the hard truth is, not everyone starts with the same clues. Being clear isn't just good teaching, it's a powerful act of equity. So we've covered a lot of ground, right? We've talked about the time clock, the digital divide, structure versus chaos, and the guessing game. 4 really different barriers, 4 sets of solutions. But what's the one thing they all have in common? They all point to one single powerful idea. We have to design for the margins. This right here, this is the equity mindset. It's about shifting from being reactive to being proactive. It's not about instructors working harder. It's about working more intentionally from the very beginning. It's about looking at the messy, complex, real lives of our students and designing a course where success isn't just a possibility for a few, but a probability for everyone. And you know what? Here's the magic behind designing for the margins. When you focus on the student who's most likely to struggle, the one with the spotty internet, the crazy schedule, the least experience with college, you accidentally end up creating a clearer, more supportive, and just plain better course for every single person in the class. It is the ultimate win-win. So, I'll leave you with this question. What's your next move? What is one small, doable change you can make in your course today to remove one of these hidden barriers? Because honestly, every small adjustment, every thoughtful design choice, it can make a world of difference. Let's get to it.